acceptance of estimates for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2025. Eric Costello, Councilman from the 11th District, Chair of the Committee. To my left, Odette Ramos, Councilwoman from the 14th District. Felicia Porter, Councilwoman from the 10th District. We're joined by staff from the Mayor's Office and the Council President's Office. We are here for the courts. If you could introduce first and last name, position, title for you and your team, and then jump into your presentation, please and thanks.
It's red now.
When it's red, you have the mic. If you could start over, please. And
okay.
Thanks.
My name is Lionel Moore. I'm the court administrator for the Circuit Court for Baltimore City. I have with me here today Drusilla Pierce, who's my financial officer who works in court administration. May I begin? Okay. All right, we got our cover page there. Let me try to click through that. All right. On behalf of the bench of the Circuit Court for Baltimore City, I want to thank you for inviting us over to discuss the court's budget and also outline what the court mission exactly is. The Circuit Court for Baltimore City is not an agency, but a separate branch of government under the Maryland Judiciary. It is a state trial court of general jurisdiction and the only court in Baltimore City that conducts jury trials. It is the goal of the Circuit Court for Baltimore City to provide meaningful access to justice systems by the timely, efficient, and fair processing of all cases. For the goals for the court, we're asking that you refer to the major operating budget highlights under the slide title 110, Circuit Court. I also would like to make reference as it relates to the goals to the court's differential case management plan, which is on the Judiciary State website, which outlines the court's goals under all case types that come before the court. The organizational chart here outlines the various divisions of the court and judges in charge. The Honorable R.G.J.S. Carrion is the Administrative Chief Judge of the Circuit Court for Baltimore City. The court's docket is divided into 4 divisions: family, juvenile, criminal, and civil. The Honorable Michael A. DePietro is the judge in charge of the family division. The Honorable Charles Bloomquist is the judge in charge of the juvenile division. The Honorable John S. Nugent is the judge in charge of the civil division. And the Honorable Melissa K. Copeland is the judge in charge of the criminal division. Service description for the Circuit Court. This is part of the Judiciary of Maryland to preside over the 8th Judicial Circuit. Key activities performed by this service include the processing of criminal, civil, juvenile, and family cases. Major operating budget highlights. The recommended budget realigns the court's grant budgets to reflect grants in appropriate funds and updates grant amounts to reflect known awards. The position court is consistent with the fiscal 2024 budget. The budget continues funding for the increased jury compensation that was increased in fiscal year 2024 budget. And with that, I will take any questions anyone has.
Thank you. We've also been joined by Councilman Zeke Cohen from the 1st District. So I know between the time of last year's budget hearings, I don't believe you guys were with us last year, is the tragic murder of Judge Wilkinson in Washington County. And it seems like the judiciary statewide has a renewed focus on security for judges and courthouses in general.
That's correct.
I know that the Baltimore City Sheriff testified before this committee last week and stated that he had conducted an assessment and found that he thinks that courthouse security is not adequately funded. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Well, I'm not exactly sure what the sheriff spoke to in terms of what wasn't adequate. The court has had an assessment, security assessment done by the administrative office of the court several years ago, and there were suggested recommendations for the physical plant, which the administrative office of the court provided funding for those improvements to be made, and most of them have been implemented thus far. So I'm not sure what the sheriff was speaking to in terms of what he thought the deficiencies are.
Do you know which of those recommendations have not yet been implemented?
Yes. We received funding to install bullet-resistant, if you will, plexiglass, but it's bullet-resistant. There's no such thing as, nothing out there in the ballistic realm will stop a bullet. But this particular plexiglass that we're trying to obtain will shatter or capture or reflect to some degree. That has not been obtained yet. We've been going through procurement with that issue for several months. Not really sure why the delay has persisted, but it has.
Do you know of any other recommendations that have not yet been implemented?
I'm sorry, repeat that?
Do you know of any other recommendations from that assessment which have not yet been implemented? And if so,
yes,
could you speak to them?
Parking for the judges. There's ongoing discussion right now to try to find some secure parking for the judges. As you know, the two buildings that the courthouse occupied, namely the Cummings Courthouse and the Mitchell Courthouse, only the Cummings Courthouse has somewhat adequate parking for the judges who work in that particular courthouse. However, for the Mitchell Courthouse, we use a combination of public parking. Well, the city owns the space, but it's in a public parking lot, and we also have a parking garage, should I say, and we also have several spaces that are outside at the upper St. Paul level and lower St. Paul level.
So are you comfortable with the extent to which those recommendations have been implemented?
Well, where we are right now, I'm comfortable with the progress we seem to be making toward coming up with a solution for secure parking in the parking garage for the judges. There's a proposal submitted by DGS that outlines new security measures for the judges to travel to and fro from the courthouse, and once they get to the garage, they have an independent elevator system to allow them to go on. And also, there's discussion about having an armed deputy in the garage on the 2 reserved floors that we intend to occupy on behalf of the judges.
Got it. Thank you. Colleagues? Cohen, Porter, Ramos?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. On a different note, I did want to thank the Circuit Court for their, particularly the administrative judge, for just everything that the court is doing to implement the in-rem process so that we can get a dedicated docket for our cases where the city then forecloses on the high liens. And the magistrate is just wonderful. She's so detail-oriented and really good, and she just does not take anything from anybody, and it's great. So I'm really grateful for this commitment. The fact that the court has made the in-rem process and working on helping us address vacant properties a high priority is so important. So please pass that message along.
I certainly will.
And I'm so grateful. Do you happen to know if I think I know what some of the improvements are that they want to make in terms of adding capacity and adding cases. I don't know if that is reflected in this budget in terms of, we just want more cases to get through. I don't know that I don't think it's a court issue. I think it's a capacity issue with the department. But just thought if there was any discussion with your office in preparation for this hearing, because they probably knew I was going to ask that question.
No, unfortunately, I'm not familiar with that discussion.
Okay.
But I can certainly try to find out something for you and get back to you.
That's totally fine. I can follow up. But just please send that word to the staff and everybody there. This is such an important priority, and I'm really grateful the court has made it such a high priority.
I will certainly pass
Thank you,
it on,
Mr. Chair. That's it.
Colleagues, any other questions? All right, we will now pass it to Your Honor. It's good to see you, sir. You need to hit the button on the bottom right, and then yep, good to go.
Can you hear me? Okay. Yes, I'm here. My name is Lewin Garrett. I'm the Chief Judge of the Orphan Court for Baltimore City. In reference to our budget, I think that it might be come on the screen. I'm not sure, but we relatively have a small budget. It's just around $800,000. Oh, thank you, Mr. Moore. How you been? So anyhow, in our budget this year, we made some absolute requirements for things that we needed. It's 2024, and basically we were running the court with technology from 2000. We had to update so many things because, again, it's almost impossible. And we realized during the pandemic how behind, we knew we were behind in technology, but it just came so apparent because that's when a lot of things, Zoom came into being, and as everyone knows now, many hearings are done by Zoom. We don't have Zoom capability in our court. In fact, the computers we had, right now, we have to do a telephone conference for people that cannot make it into the court. So we had to limit, and you can't do a contested hearing by telephone conference. It's impossible. You have to see the demeanor, you have to see the person. Now, some hearings we can that really are basically uncontested, we can do that. But that was really limited in what we can do. We now in the smart system, even though we are in the circuit court, we are not really a part of the circuit court. And that's what confuses a lot of people. A little while ago, you asked them for security. Well, as you know, all the magistrates and the judges in the circuit court, in order to get in their chambers, you have to ring in, and they ask you who you are or similar questions, and then they can admit you into the chambers. We didn't have that. I'm gonna just tell you, I went out and got a ring camera. I have to protect my staff. And we stuck it on the door in order to be able to protect and I don't want to be on the front page of the Sun paper or the banner having to fight someone in my chambers. So, I mean, those technology was a big issue. And for us to really do what we need to do, and a lot of times people don't think about the orphan court, and as all you know, it's a probate court, and most of the time, people come to us when someone dies. That's when we become very relevant. I mean, you were talking about the property, the abandoned houses, and many of the abandoned houses, as I know, Councilman Costello, you know all about this because you brought it to our court attention, and we have been trying to work with this Baltimore City. A lot of these houses are from people that owned the houses, and they died, and no one came in to take care of the houses. And of course, our houses become dilapidated and become eyesores for the city. But we had really, through the effort that Baltimore City and you, Councilman Costello, took, we were able to streamline the process of the city taking care of those houses. But again, we need technology to do it. 3 of our computers right now, they are so outdated, we can't even connect them to the court smart system in our office. And I will get to that because that's, we have our budget submitted, but that's another about $6,000 we need to just update the computer. In order to get connected to Court Smart, we need, we got the equipment, But they forgot one thing to mention to us. The cables have to be updated to connect us. And without that, of course, Smart, yeah, we have the cameras and everything else, but we can't do anything. And that's another $10,000 we need, in addition to what we have requested in our budget. So being, again, within the circuit court, and we have, and I think okay, I'm an old guy, so if I mess anything up, please tell me what I'm doing wrong, because that's why I have a law clerk, because she tells me, I'm not scared to press buttons, but a lot of times I press them, and I'm right most of the time, but when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Okay, so I should press the button on the side to advance it. Okay. All right. That wasn't hard. Let me see. I'm gonna go back. Okay. I'm not trying to play with it now, but it's pretty neat. So anyhow, see, and old guys like me, we are still hesitant about technology. Now you're gonna laugh because my youngest daughter about to get a PhD from the University of Michigan in nuclear engineering. And of course, she's very up to date with things. But in order for us to serve the citizens of Baltimore City, we have to update the court. We have to get Zoom, the ability to have hearings by Zoom. Sometimes, especially this became so apparent during the pandemic, we were able to still maintain the court docket, and I think you have the information on how many hearings we have. 1/4 of our hearings went to circuit court. They would need 2 to 3 judges full time to do what we do. And I would say less than 10 cases a year are appealed to the circuit court. So it's a specialty that we do. And I've been down there, this is my 28th year as in this Orphans Court, the last 10 years as chief judge. And yeah, I told you I'm old. So anyhow, I've been practicing almost 47 years total. But, and before I got there, I worked with Mrs. Juanita Mitchell as her, well, I was a clerk and now I was a young lawyer doing the estate in her office. But the thing is that I know what is needed. All we ask is to give us the ability to do it. We are more than happy to work with the city and trying to resolve any issues that we are able to resolve within the confines of our jurisdiction in the Orphans Court. But more importantly, we need, when someone dies, it's a traumatic time. And we can't, and the whole saying, justice delayed is justice denied. And a lot of times people have bills. Unfortunately, my mother died 7.5 years. And I wanted the whole world to stop. But the world doesn't stop. It goes on. And you still have expenses to meet. You still have bills to satisfy. And when someone dies, you can't wait 6 months. They may lose a house, get a car repossessed, or what's have you. And they had tuitions to pay. They got child care to pay, all of that. And they come to us, and we're working on a 2000 year technology, trying to do what we need to do in 2024. So what I think our budget is more than justified. I've asked for the additional costs. One thing I have mentioned is that none of the judges, we haven't gotten a raise in over 10 years. And we are working, and on 2012, I think, was the last time we received a raise. And you're trying to work and do the work necessary in the time that it devotes. And anyone that kind of knows me, if you come to court 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, I'm still there because it's my responsibility. And as I was saying, the buck does stop here. I'm going to make sure the work is done. And because I live on 2 principles, and one principle is very important here. You probably know the first one, but you treat people the way you would like to be treated. And whether you are in a person in the gallery, come in front of the court, or you have an issue, I would want you to treat me I want the judge to treat me the same way if that was someone in his family that came up. So I tried to do that as much, and the other judges do the same. But what we would ask for, again, we have to get the $6,000 for a new computer in addition to our budget, because most of the budget is for things that we just for technology. We have to get the additional $10,000. Then, as the circuit court judges get automatic pay raise, we changed the statute so we can come directly to the city and ask for a pay raise. But I would ask the court, I would ask the council to consider at least a $25,000 for each of the judges' pay raise, because we haven't gotten a pay raise in 10 to 12 years now. And we need that in order to be able to devote the time. I'm going to tell you, yes, I'm going to still be down there. And depending on where my daughter goes when she graduates next year, it may change how long I'll be down there. But I'm going to stay as long as necessary in order for the work to be done. But again, it could go much smoother and much expeditiously if we have the material, if we have the technology. And I don't want other judges, the other 2 judges, they work very hard and we all get along very well. But I don't want being the chief judge and knowing what they sacrificed to be there. I think they are all deserving of a raise too. So that's why I asked the council. I'd be happy to entertain any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Your Honor. Have you made the request to BBMR, to the budget office, for that additional $10,000?
Well, we just found out, okay, within the answer is yes. We are making what happened is that we got the technology. Then the people came in and said, we can't connect it. And the question is why? And then they say, you don't have the cable to do it. And so the person just gave us an estimate a week ago how much the cable would be. And then we went through, my office manager, she contacted the city and begin to go through the process. The computers, the computer, I don't know other way just to be honest. One of the computers just died on us, okay? So we called the people because we were not on BSET either. So we are trying to get connected, so everything we had to pay separate. So we just made that request.
So what's the total cost of the request to be able to do the Zoom hearings?
Okay, with the cable, everything, well, we have the cameras and things to connect us with. The additional cost in addition to what is our budget right now would be another $16,000.
16,000. 16, 1 6.
Yeah, 1 6. That's all. We are not asking for it. Again,
no,
our budget is pretty low.
Yep. I'm absolutely certain we can find $16,000. I know that's above your pay grade. But
Good morning. Yeah, I totally agree. I think we can make
okay.
it work.
So, Your Honor, when you get back to the office, can you have someone email me that itemized proposal that
Yes.
lays out the $16,000?
Thank you so much, Council.
Well, I haven't done anything
Yeah,
yet.
well, I was just to have people to listen because when I had to go get rain just to protect my staff, because people when someone dies, it's a traumatic time, but people
Sure.
get really upset with each other. And there's an old analogy, you see birds flying together, pigeon, but then throw some breadcrumbs down and see how they start jumping on top of each other. And unfortunately, many times that's what happened. But you try to put things in perspective. Someone just died and you are upset and you want to blame somebody. And 99% of the times, it's no one to blame.
Yep.
That's just what, we all have our seasons.
All right, if you can you have that emailed to me by the end of the
It
day
would-
today?
Yes, I would make sure my office manager.
Time
does.
is certainly of the essence.
Yes.
All right, very good.
And then if you would consider the salary increase, I would deeply appreciate it.
Duly noted. If you, I would advise that you put that in writing, and we will send, I will be happy to send that to the administration.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Are there any other questions?
Cohen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Your Honor, and Mazel Tov for your daughter on her soon-to-be graduation.
The best thing I ever, well, she did all the work. I just gave her the opportunity.
No doubt. Well, hope you can lure her back to Baltimore, because
I'm trying to get her to come. She wanted to come to the applied physics lab in Maryland.
I heard we have a
but
good one
Berkeley
here.
is trying to recruit her too.
Wow.
Now I'm trying to get her to stay on the east side of the country.
it's a cheaper cost of living over here. But anyway,
Much cheaper.
no, appreciate you, and fully agree with the chair around that's a very minuscule amount of funding to. We should be able to do that as a city pretty easily. I'm interested in similar to the questions the chair was asking about to the previous gentleman around security and updates for security for the Orphans Court. What's your sense of how well suited we are in terms of being able to protect our folks in the Orphans Court? Is it appropriate? Does it need more? Again, the sheriff contends that we have more work to do in protecting the courts, but what's your sense of it?
Well, as Mr. Moore was talking, and I mentioned previously, most of the judges and magistrates, I'm not sure I saw one of the judges this morning in the elevator. I said, how you doing? We don't say judge, because then outside of, unless the sheriffs are present, I won't say judge to them, because of course then that kind of single them out. But the security has improved in the courthouse itself, and the circuit court judges, in order to get to the chambers, they do have a separate entrance. And we had to get permission to use that entrance, by the way. And I'm just, I had several health issues this year. I'm back. I just ran the Baltimore 10-miler yesterday. So I'm back on the block, just about back on the block. But I had to get permission to come up, use that elevator, because if not, we had to go through the normal entrance, which is fine. But once in a while, when you do have concerns and people see you outside, they see you on the bench and they see you outside and they walk up to you, you don't know what the circumstances might be. Now, as far as the Orphan Court specifically, as I mentioned to you, I just went and got the rain because I had to protect my staff. And Mr. Moore was trying to get us the same security, that they could rain and then we could see it. But to go through that process was taking so long, and I'm not going to have anyone in my office injured. Because again, the buck stops here. I'm going to do what I need to do to make sure they are okay. So, we haven't asked, that's been working fine up to this point. We would like to get on the same system. We have we had our panic buttons too, in the court and in the chambers itself. So and the sheriff's office, I think they've been excellent. I mean, I have to give, all the sheriffs are extremely polite, and very responsive. I don't have anything but praise really for the sheriff's office. They have been doing, in my assessment, a really excellent job trying to protect. And even, because I'm an orphan court judge, and when the people call me judge, usually they just say Lewin by my first name outside the court. But the sheriffs know who I am, and they would always make sure they see something. They will always make sure I'm okay. I'm also happen to be a 7th degree black belt too, so but I don't want to be on the front page of Banner. So I try to avoid that as much as possible.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Your Honor, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Please send my regards to Judge Bernstein, my good friend and neighbor. And I look forward to receiving something in writing for you before the end of the day.
I would make sure, and thank you for having
Thank you,
me
Your Honor.
and listening to me.
We are now in recess until DPW at 1 p.m. Thank you.